Hi, I'm Pastor Paul L. Starks from the Greater Love Reformed Baptist Church in Carson, California. Today we're going to talk about politics and religion. Should we talk about politics and religion? Why we should talk about politics and religion? And I think the benefits of talking about politics and religion. Well, I think as Christians, one of the things that we assume is that you can't talk about both. You know, you see people saying, hey, religion and politics don't mix. In fact, I believe it's the opposite. I think religion and politics is very important because politics plays a significant part in our lives as believers, especially in a world where the church is being constantly bombarded with the idea of the government somehow imposing its will on the activity and the functioning of the church. And so politics is vitally important, I think, a subject to talk about as believers. When you think about politics, we think about the local government implementing ideas, concepts, ideas, and also about the church also implementing its ideas and content. And so these things are constantly blending together. So if talking about religion and politics is harmful, I think us as believers, this is something that we should be engaging in because as Christians, we're going to be often harmed. Things are not always going to go well. And I think the issue of politics and religion go hand in hand. We have constantly been taught, well, you don't want to talk about politics, you don't want to talk about religion. If you talk about your politics, it's going to turn people off. If you talk about your religion, it's going to turn people off. In fact, those are two very important subjects. And I think as believers, we shouldn't be scared to talk about it. We should be able to functionally talk about it. And we should, as individuals, be able to give a worldview that's compatible with our lives as Christians as it relates to, or maybe it contrasts, the difference of politics and the society that we live in. Well, you might be asking, why? Why should Christians be involving government and religion together? In fact, the Bible talks about that. It talks about us in the book of Romans chapter 13, talks about subjecting ourselves to the government authorities. Well, if we're going to subject ourselves to the government authorities, it's important for Christians to know what the government authorities believe, how they're carrying out their ideas, what it is they're telling us to do or not to do. And so it's vitally important for us as Christians to know something about the government. If we have to know something about the government, that has to be our mission in terms of linking politics and government together and politics and religion together. So the aspect of us having politics and religion together is compatible with us knowing what the government's authority is or not over us as believers. Oftentimes we think about ourselves and we think about a government. We're just thinking about the government is one way and the Christians are this way. In reality, if we're living our lives as Christians and we're living our lives in a world that is governed by a system, we have to know something about the system. The Bible calls us to be wise as serpents, but gentle as doves. If we're going to be wise as serpents, it's vitally important for us to understand what the government is teaching, what it believes, and the significance that it has on us as Christians. I believe that the benefits also of combining both religion and politics helps us as Christians. It draws us into the idea of ways in which we can navigate within this world, both to see how the government can harm us, but in many ways also to see how the government can benefit us as members of the body of Christ. When we think of the government, we always think of the government as sometimes being in opposition to us as Christians. But in America, we can also look at the government as benefiting us in ways in which can help us not only survive as Christians, but ways that we think the government can help us in propagating the gospel, giving us ways and avenues in which Christians and believers in America can not only function within this government, but benefit from what the government offers to us as believers. As a Black person and a Christian, one of the things that I've noticed is that our community as a whole has a tendency to vote in a particular way, in which we believe that the government in this particular fashion helps us. For example, Black people are traditionally Democrat. So as Democrats, we vote in a certain way. And Black people have had a tendency to constantly vote in that way as Democrats. And so we have to think as Christians, is this something that we should do? something we shouldn't do? Does the Democratic Party have a policy that benefits us or not benefits us, or in fact harms us, or goes against our worldview as Christians in America?